I'm not going to lie. I do read it there, but I will tell you that I've been convicted drastically by God that reading through the Bible off my smartphone has not helped my walk with Him one bit. And so in January when we start over, I'm going to do something a little different. I will read through my Bible, but I plan on studying it this next time, not just reading it. And that's important. There's a difference between reading and studying. I pray every day that God gives me His Word that I can apply it to my life, and then I get to work and I think, what did I even read today? Right? But anyway, I want to encourage you to bring your Bibles. Turn to John chapter 1. We're going to start in John chapter 1. And over the next 8 weeks or so, it may cut it short, it may go a little longer, we're going to study who Jesus really is. Now this chapter right here in John chapter 1 is kind of the beginning. It's what we call a prologue. It's the beginning. It's the beginning story of John introducing some key facts to us so that when we get into the meat and potatoes of the Gospel of John, we know what he's talking about with confidence. We can hold on to these nuggets of truth with confidence that Jesus is who He says He is. And John, after that's broke down into two sections, I'll tell you again later, but we call it the book of signs, which is the miracles and stuff, and then we call it the book of glory, which is His death, His resurrection, His burial, all those things in His being brought into the kingdom, which is when we get to be able to share with Him. But let's look at John 1 through 18. I'm going to actually read it out of my word here. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through Him all things were made. Without Him nothing was made that has been made. In Him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. There came a man who was sent from God. His name was John. Just so you know, real quick right here, this is not John who's writing this book. This is John the Baptist. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all men might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives the light to every man was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through Him, the world did not recognize Him. He came to that which was His own, but His own did not receive Him. Yet to all who received Him, to those who believed in His name, He gave the right to become children of God. Children born of not natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us. We have seen His glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. John testifies concerning Him. He cries out, saying, "This was He of whom I said, He who comes after me has surpassed me, because He was before me. From the fullness of His grace we have all received one blessing after another. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, but God, the one and only, who is at the Father's side, has made Him known." I need you to understand one thing as we look at the background of this text and understand who is John writing to, okay? John is writing to here both the Jews of his day. John was writing to the Jews, and he was also writing to the Gentiles. He was writing to both groups of people, those of God's people and those that were not God's people, basically, okay? That's his audience, is the Gentiles and the Jews. It was everybody who reads this book. It was those people, okay? That's who John is writing to. And he starts the book out very much similar to some other verse we know, does he not? Anybody have any idea what this sounded like? In the beginning was the Word. Where else have we heard those similar words? Genesis 1:1. That's a great point. Let's look there. I'm going to read it around my notes here since I don't want to turn my Bible a bunch off this main page. But in Genesis 1:1 it says, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." Now look back at John 1:1. In the beginning was the what? The Word. It's important that you understand here where the Word fits into the picture. See, the Word was not after creation. The Word was what? Before creation. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was there. Okay? You got to understand where it fits. In the beginning, in Genesis, God created. He spoke and things happened, right? But before that was the Word. It's important that we understand where it all fits into the story here of why John is going back to the beginning in Genesis 1 and saying that He is before creation. So you got to remember that. Keep that in mind as we progress on through this, okay? It goes on in Genesis 1:2. Some of y'all are looking at me like I am dead. Y'all are lost. Everybody okay? Kind of deep stuff. Everybody all right? Look back at Genesis 1:2 real quick. In verse 3. I don't have that one written down here, but I want to talk to you about his word real fast. Okay. Verse 3 says, "And God said, 'Let there be light.' And there was light. God saw that light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night." And God went on to 6 and said, "And God said, 'Let there be expanse between the waters.' And it happened." See, God spoke, and it happened, right? He spoke. It was his word that he spoke, and things happened. The interesting thing that's happening here, though, in John, is he's making a comparison to God speaking. And when we think of God speaking, we think of God's word, we think of what? We literally think of God speaking, right? Like God said this, God did this, right? But John has another point here he's trying to make into the word. And at this point, John's caught our attention in saying that the word was in the beginning, and the word was God, and the word was with God. And he's kind of left us saying, well, what is the word, right? Because, I mean, if it was God and was in the beginning and is God, then what is the word? You know, he's kind of left us hanging. He's really kind of using some pretty good writing style here when he says that the word was with God and is God and was in the beginning. See, because he's really kind of taking his knife out and he's kind of jabbing at the Jews here a little bit, and he's trying to say, hey, look, the word, because they're trying to figure this whole thing out. But he's trying not to trick them. He's trying not to scare them or freak them out. He's trying to get their attention so they'll want more. Okay? So it's the same thing for you and I. He's really getting our attention. What is this word that he's talking about, right? I mean, have you ever read the Bible and asked those questions? What does that mean? What is the word? What is this? What is that? Well, I do it all the time. Every time I read it, because I'm just one of those kind of common dumb people that doesn't get everything unless it hits me in the side of the head like a brick. But anyway, he's really at this point, he is talking about the word, and he's got everybody's kind of sitting on the edge of their seat, okay? In a little bit, we'll figure it out. Let's look at the next thing that John does in verses 4 through 13. He says, "In him was life." You have those verses up? Click the next one. Okay, keep going. Back up. Can you back up? Can you go back again? Stay right there. Stay right there. That's where we are. "In him was life, and that life was the light of men." Okay, so now he's talked about the word, and now he's going on to talk about the light, right? And think about light for a minute. What happens in this room if we were to shut all the lights off? It'd be dark. How long would it take to get dark? Like instant, right? So you turn off the lights. What happens when you turn the light on? It gets light again. Is there ever a time where the two can mix? No, they can't. I mean, it's either dark or it's light, right? Now, what happens if we turn off all the lights, and we could, because we can't, because of emergency lighting that we have to have, but let's just say we can make this place completely dark, and then all of a sudden, just in the back there, somebody turned on a little tiny flashlight. You'd be able to notice it, wouldn't you? Like the light will enter the room, and it will make all of a sudden something unrecognizable recognizable, right? So understanding how light works, we need to understand. But secondly, what about life? Can life exist without light? Okay, there are animals and there are creatures that do live in dark caves and that survive on other things. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Life as we know it could not exist in the world today without light. Light is crucial to our existence. Plants photosynthesize because of light. They put off what? The air that we breathe. And then we do what with those same plants? We eat them, right? Other animals eat them that we then in turn eat. Light provides that substance that we need, air and food. Without light, those things can't happen, right? What about warmth? Do we get warmth from it? I mean, we're coming up on the time of year where everybody hates living in this part of Florida and they want to move south because, like my wife, because it's cold up here, which I don't really think it gets that cold, but it gets cold, right? But what about without light? We'll wake up in the morning sometimes and it might be 20, 30 degrees, but by noon it's 50, 60 degrees around here, and it warms us up, right? Light warms us up. Could you imagine how cold it would be if light never happened? If we did not have the effects of the sun rays? Light is important to life. John here is saying that this light has come into the world. Okay, he's making an analogy. He's basically saying that like light has to exist in order for life to occur, this light, the true light, has come so that we can have life, that we can have real life. Now, what life is he talking about? He's talking about eternal life. He's talking about Christ. He's planting the seed here just like he did earlier with the word. Now he's calling it the light, and we're sitting here going, what is the word? What is light? Right? What is it? In verses 4 through 13, he goes on to say, there came a man who was sent from God. His name was John. This is John the Baptist. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all men might believe. Now, who are all men? Us. Us. We're all men. But what is the light? Is it something John's doing? No, he's basically testifying that there is one coming who will bring this light. Okay? Let's look at it. It's a fulfillment. John's testimony is a fulfillment. Go to the next slide for me.